Lalai, lalai, yalai, lai, yalai, lai, 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 lalai, yalai, lalai, lalai, yalai, lai, yalai, lai, 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 lalai, yalai, lalai, lalai, yalai, lai. Yalalai, yalalai, lalai, lalai, yalalai, 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 lalai, 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 yalalai, lalai, yalalai, lalai. Yalalai, lalai, lalai, yalalai, 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 lalai, yalalai, lalai, lalai, yalalai, Shabbat Shalom, friends.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is wonderful for us to be together on this Shabbat Mishpatim, and it is always wonderful for us to utilize a variety of different spaces on campus, and we're using our chapel space, which gives us a sense of warmth and love and intimacy as we gather together on Shabbat. We continue with Hine Matov.
Hine matovu manayim, shevet kulam gam yachad. 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 Hine matovu manayim, shevet kulam gam yachad.
We continue with our blessings for Shabbat, the lighting of the Shabbat candles on page 120. I'd like to invite up Robin Stone.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech
Haolam asher kirshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
continue with Kabbalat Shabbat, going through the cycle of psalms of poetry representing the days of creation leading up to our day of rest. Psalm 95, Lechuna Ranana, page 130.
Lechune ranana, l'Adonai, nari aletzur, yishenu nekadma fanav, b'toda bizmirot, nari alo nekadma fanav, b'toda bizmirot, nari alo.
Next
Page 1.
Shiru
Shiru l'Adonai, Shir Hadash, Shiru l'Adonai, Kol haaretz, Shiru l'Adonai, Baruch Shemo, Bizdu Midom Leom, Yeshuato, Sapru v'goyim, Kevodo, Bechol ha'amim, Nifleotav.
Or Zarua la tzaddik yishrei lev simcha. Light is sown for the righteous, radiance for the upright. Mizmor shiru ladonai shir chadash ki niflaot asa. A psalm to God, celebrating all the wonders that God gives us, God's right hand, God's arm. And through those wonders, we raise a shout to God, all the earth. Break into joyous songs of praise. We continue on page 134.
Samru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor, v'kol zimra. Zamru 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 l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor, v'kol zimra.
We continue, page 136, Psalm 29.
Come on, brain.
Mizmor
Thank you.
David,
Havul Adonai va'elim, Mizmor leDavid, Havul Adonai kavod shemos, Havul Adonai kavod maoz, Havul Adonai kavod shemos, Havul Adonai kavod maoz, Havul Adonai kavod shemo. Yadai, 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 yadai,
Adonai os
Memo yitain, Adonai Yivarech et Amo V'Shalom. Adonai Os Le'amo Yitain. Adonai Yivarech et Amo V'Shalom. Yai, lai, lai. Yada lai 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 lai, yada lai 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 lai, yada lai, yada lai lai lai, yada lai 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 lai. Adonai Os Le'amo Yitain. Adonai Yivarech et Amo V'Shalom. Adonai Os Le'amo Yitain. Adonai Yivarech et Amo V'Shalom.
The mystics looked at Kabbalat Shabbat, as I said, as a reenactment of the days of creation leading up to Shabbat. But the mystics also looked at it as the opportunity in which all of the attributes of God come together as one. And with Lecha Dodi, our poem, we look at God as a bride, and we look at how the attribute of God's masculine and feminine sides become one and they greet each other, much like a marriage. We also are in that relationship with God as well. We are sanctifying our relationship with God each and every day, and we are doing so also on this Shabbat. Lecha Dodi is found on page 138 and 139. We will sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 6. And when we reach verse 9, I invite the congregation to rise and face our entrance as we greet our Shabbat.
Yada la 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 Dodi. Yada la 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 Lekrat Kala. Yada la 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 Pnei Shabbat. Pnei Shabbat Nekabel. Yada la 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 Lecha Dodi. Yada la 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 Lekrat Kala. Yada la 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 Pnei Shabbat. Pnei Shabbat Nekabela. Shamor v'zakor b'dibur echad. Ishmianu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad. Ushemo echad. L'shem u'tiferet v'litila. Ya la la, ya la 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 la, Lecha Dodi. La 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 la, Lekrat Kala. Ya la 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 la, Pnei Shabbat. Pnei Shabbat Nekabela.
Likrat Shabbat lechu v'melcha ki mikor haberacha berosh mikedem yesucha sof ma'aseh b'machshvat hilah. Ya la la, ya la 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 la, Lecha Dodi. Ya la 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 la, Lekrat Kala. Ya la 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 la, Pnei Shabbat. Pnei Shabbat Nekabela. Hitorari, hitorari, kiva orech, kumi ori, uri, shir daberi, kevod Adonai, alayich niglab. Ya la la, ya la 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 la, Lecha Dodi. Ya la 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 la, Lekrat Kala. Ya la 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 la, Pnei Shabbat. Pnei Shabbat Nekabela. Lo תבושי ולא תקלמי, מה תשתוכי ומה תהמי, בך יסוע אני אאמין, ונבקע עיר אל תילה.
Ya la 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 kadodi. Ya la 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 likrat kala. Ya la 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 penei Shabbat. Penei Shabbat nekabela. Boi veshalom. Ateret bala. גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמונה עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. Ya la 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 lecha dodi. Ya la 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 lekrat kala. Ya la 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 penei Shabbat. Penei Shabbat nekabe. Ya la 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 lecha dodi. Ya la 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 lekrat kala. Ya la 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 penei Shabbat. Penei Shabbat nekabela.
Now that we have greeted the Shabbat bride, let's take the time to greet each other and wish each other a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. We're going to continue together with one last song for Shabbat. Page 140.
Mizmor, mizmor, shir, shir liyom ha-Shabbat. 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 Mizmor shir, shir liyom ha-Shabbat. Mizmor shir, shir liyom ha-Shabbat. Mizmor, mizmor shir, shir liyom ha-Shabbat. Mizmor, mizmor shir, shir liyom ha-Shabbat.
Continue with the Chatzi Kaddish, transitioning into the next phase of our service, Shema Uvrutecha, Shema its blessings, page 144.
Yitkarav, yitkara shemei rabba.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach yirtei v'emlich malchutei b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei kol Beit Yisrael bagala bagala uv'isman chari ve'imeru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevorach Le'olam olam me'almaya yitbarach. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yithale, v'yithalal, shemei dekudesha prichu. Le'elamin kol brechata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma, ve'imeru. Amen.
Please rise.
And we go that way. La 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 la, ya 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 la 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 la, la 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 la. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed, leolam va'ed. Yalalai lai lai, 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 yalalai lai lai. Yala la la la, yala la la la.
Please be seated. Join with me in the English at the top of page 149. Praise to you,
O Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aravim.
We acknowledge God's love for us through the giving of Torah, Ahavat Olam, page 150.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amecha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu lemadata, Otanu lemadata. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shachvenu, uvkumenu na'asiach bechukecha, v'nizmach b'divrei Toratecha, u'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki hem kaenu, ve'orech yameinu, uvahem negei yomam v'layla, negei yomam v'layla. Ve'ahavatcha al tasir, mimenu le'olamin. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael. Ohev amo Yisrael.
Shema
Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך. ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובחומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זעינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
We acknowledge God being a shelter for us all through love, compassion, keeping us safe through those life storms. Page 160.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים לשלום מעתה ועד עולם. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום ועמידנו שומרנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום ועמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ושמור צאתנו ובואנו boenu lechaim ushalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom
haporesu shalom aleinu. Kol amo Yisrael ba'al Yerushalayim. Blessed are you, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over all of us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. We link ourselves to generations past in our age-old conversation with God. We begin together with those opening words of the Amidah on page 164, and then we continue to pray silently until page 180. Please rise.
Yalla la la la, 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 yalla la la la. Adonai Sephatai Tiftach, Ufi Agi Tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Yadalai, 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 yadalai.
Yehiyu l'ratzonim refi v'hegyon libi lefanecha Adonai tzori v'goali. Oseh shalom b'mrumav hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru.
Amen.
We take a moment in our service at this time to turn our thoughts to those loved ones in need of healing, of mind, of body, of spirit. As my eyes meet yours, I invite you to share the name of that loved one aloud or within your hearts. Richard Kennemer, Jack Long, Don Gringorton, Bruce Roberts, Stuart Mass, Alfreda Mastman, Diane Siegel, Jill Becker, Gail Frankel, Scott Van Gundy, Debbie Pink, Daphne Talmore, Mira Engel, Jill Jacknow, Dave Stahl, Greg Herb, Michelle Winner, Marie Siegel, Maggie Scardigoli, Denise Pringle, Lonnie Goldman, Richard Ravitch, former member of Shir Hadash, Bernice Paris, mother of Carol Paris, Adam Kaufman, Ian Ballard, friend of Allison Turner, Franklin Wolfson, son-in-law of Susan Deniston, Varda Satchi, mother of Nava Bernstein, Andy Talbot, friend of Stuart Katzman, Irina Grinwald, mother of Yelena Kessel, and Cindy Gordon. Misha Berach can be found on page 371.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mechor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
So it seems only fitting that last weekend was Super Bowl weekend, because we had our own sound and light show of our own in our Torah portion, the giving of the Ten Commandments, the divine revelation at Sinai. Now we know that, like our ancestors, we can't always live in a moment of divine revelation. See, we need to be able to be inspired by it, to respond to it. We live the day-to-day, and we live in the detail. And in this week's Parsha Mishpatim, we see a very large shift in how our Torah is experienced, because we go from narrative to law. And this is a law code that has rules and regulations about how to live in society. Now, our commentators, they try to group these laws into specific categories, but when you read the chapters, it's often hard to see if there was actually any real, true arrangement that you can place upon them. These laws range from regulations concerning the acquisition of a Hebrew slave, to rules governing the treatment of a murderer, from somebody who curses his mother and father, followed by rules regarding injuries received during fisticuffs, from rules regarding an ox that gores a human being to death, followed by someone who opens a pit and takes no pains to cover it properly, so that an oxen and donkeys may fall and be injured or killed, and so on. But on this particular Shabbat, we join congregations nationwide in Repro Shabbat, because it is a Shabbat where we can raise awareness of Judaism's approach to reproductive health, rights, and justice. And within this week's Parsha, Parshat Mishpatim, we read a piece of a case about a pregnant woman who is inadvertently struck by two men during a public fight. And our text tells us that there are two different punishments for two very different scenarios. If she loses pregnancy, her husband is owed a monetary fine. If she herself is killed, then nefesh tachat nefesh, life for life. Now, from all of this enters the conversation related to abortion And we learn from this section how our Torah distinguishes between the value of a life of the pregnant person and the life of the fetus. Now, we've spoken a lot from our Bima about how causing the termination of pregnancy is not in the Torah considered murder, that life does not necessarily begin at conception according to Jewish law. But what we often haven't spoken about is how important our laws and our stories are intertwined. Because the verses within our Torah talk about all of these different legal scenarios. But surely there had to be a story behind it. Because our Jewish values are always about text in dialogue with the lived experiences of the Jewish people. So it's incumbent upon us to bring life to the stories that inspired the law, to be in dialogue with the experiences of those who inspired them. And even though the voices of our collective past often feel silent, there are those today that can lift up the depth and meaning to the laws that guide our Judaism. There's Veronica, who at 39 years old found out that she was pregnant, and without hesitation, her partner and she both knew that an abortion was the best option for them. They were both full-time single parents of teenagers, and they were not looking for having more children. And on the day of her appointment, she woke up feeling great, and she was sure of her decision. She got to the clinic, she checked in, she started completing all the forms, and all of a sudden, the most excruciating pain hit her out of nowhere. She felt faint, she could barely speak, and it was difficult for her to get up. The pain was concentrated on the right side of her uterus, and it was unbearable. As a result, she learned that she had an ectopic pregnancy, and her fallopian tubes were at the threat of being ruptured. And she started crying and crying even harder, not just because of the pain, but because she felt all alone. She didn't want to tell her mom. She didn't want to tell anybody because she was embarrassed to be in this position at her age. She felt like that she was going to be a disappointment to others. But the abortion care providers saved her life. And then there's Carrie, who struggled with infertility, and she was so excited when she finally got pregnant with a baby girl. Now, everything was looking fine until they got to their anatomy scan at 21 weeks, where it was revealed that her daughter had heart and brain abnormalities and a small chest cavity. Unfortunately, they learned that her daughter was not compatible with life. And Carrie and her husband had to make the heartbreaking decision to have an abortion and end their much-wanted pregnancy. It was probably the hardest decision that they had ever had to make, and it was one that they didn't take lightly. They named her Annalise Marie after Anne Frank, in hopes that, like Anne Frank, she would go on living even after her death. For Carrie, abortion was a necessary right for her, and at any stage of pregnancy, even in those cases where her daughter Annalise was the most loved and most wanted baby. They were faced with making a difficult choice out of love and compassion. Now, friends, these are only two voices of many that have made the choice to have an abortion. And we know that this is a polarizing issue. But our Torah portion this week also calls on us to not oppress the stranger and to protect the vulnerable in our community. And I would think that there are so many times when those who choose abortion may feel as if they are the stranger and they are the vulnerable. And the Torah forcibly makes clear that the poor and downtrodden, the vulnerable, the oppressed, the exposed and powerless. They are all our neighbors. We're called to love because we remember only too well as a people what being vulnerable feels like. Now, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs noted that even though the Torah is this book of law, law without empathy equals justice without compassion. Our commentator Rashi explains that God originally planned to create the world through the attribute of justice, but saw that it could only be survived if it was joined by the attribute of compassion. This is how God acts, and in turn, this is how we are compelled to act. So regardless of whether or not we may fall on the pendulum of pro-life or pro-choice, we're obligated to show empathy, and we're obligated to show love. The revelation at Sinai and the laws that followed had one purpose: to teach us how to behave as a human being and remind us that we need to relate to each other with generosity, with sensitivity, with openness. It's the narratives, though, that bring life to the laws that guide us. Stories that help us find the way to not fear what is different or uncomfortable, to embrace it, to love it, to care for it as if it were our own. Because, friends, these stories bring voice to those who have been silenced. And on this Shabbat, may all the stories of abortion inspire us and compel us to help shape a path forward. And may all of us strive for justice through love and compassion. And we say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom. We continue together for the Hashivota, page 588. James, you want to help me open the ark? Beautiful. Please rise. You did it. Good.
V'hashevota el levavecha ki Adonai hu Elohim V'hashevota el levavecha ki Adonai hu Elohim v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad Ushemo echad.
Please be seated. If you are in the first 7 days of morning Shiva, please rise and share with us who you are remembering this evening. If you are in the first 30 days of morning Shloshim, please rise and share with us who you are remembering on this Shabbat. If you are in the cycle of the first year of mourning, please rise and share with us who you are remembering. If you have a yahrzeit this week, the anniversary of someone's passing, please rise and share with us who you are remembering. Our congregation offers its condolences to Tammy Isaacs on the death of her father, Bob Sturman, and to Mark Spilka on the death of his brother Adam Richard Spilka, and to Cookie Futterman Spilka on the death of her brother-in-law. Lenora Wang, Solomon Shlomo Isips, Howard Levine, Barbara Lombard, Claire London, Drago Herman, Merle Greenwald, Samuel Grinwald, Anita Kumula, Bryce Lyon, Edna Stone, Miriam Davis, Lauren Janovich, Janet Wool, Charlene Kilgore, Ezra Sati Satchi, Gideon Hoffer, Alvin Kramer Siegel, Vlasta Vininovich, Galina Buturina, Karen Imbolzanu, Lillian Berman, Robert Bruce Myers, Abraham Karras, Scott Safadi, Norman Green, Marilyn Silverman, Leslie Heinall, David Green, Jeannie Porish, Estelle Abrams, Spencer Canny, Arthur Cherdak, John Ivers, Marilyn Handelman, Kay Damron, Nira Marome, Andrea Cameron, Ziba Faruzan, Rosella Newton, Linda Sherry, Fred DeCastro, Sherry Skian, Larry Eisen, Harry Gross, Michael Taub, David Schwartz, Rhoda Freiman, Eliad Foner Lipsitz, Alex Weiser, Beatrice Hartman, Bernard Schumann, Betty Rosenberg, Dominic Norcha, Donald Ohm, Harry Fishman, Harry Laub, Henry Kramer, Joe Green, Joseph Roberts, Joyce Ing, Judy Friedman, Karen Casey, Kenneth Rich, Manuel Katofsky, Marcus Lowe, Marguerite Bazik, Owen Falk, Philip Goldkin, Rachel Rivlin, Rhoda Rosen, Robert Charles Siegel, Sandra Morse, Sarah Master Karp, Seville Porish, Shalom Suki, Sid Freifeld, Stan Wool, and Sylvia Schwartz. Now you can support our community by sitting or standing, joining us with your voices or your hearts for Kaddish Avelim, the Mourner's Kaddish, on page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah,
Be'alma divrach hirite ve'emlich malchute, B'chayachon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dekol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala v'zman kariv ve'emru Amen.
Yehesh shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya,
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu, Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiram be'oma ve'emru Amen. Yehi shlama rabbam ben Shemaya v'chayim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'emru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'emru Amen.
May the memories of all of your dear ones be a blessing in your life and to all of your loved ones. Yehi zichram baruch. And we say, Amen. Please be seated.
Do you have announcements?
I do have some announcements. And I'll announce them in a very short second. So tomorrow morning, I hope that you join me for Torah study and services at 10:30. Then the office is closed on Monday and the preschool is closed because of President's Day. And they are on the back of the handout. I'm looking for something at the same time. I'm trying to multitask. And I'm only moderately successful at it. Next Shabbat is a special Shabbat on Friday and Saturday. Rabbi Nico is going to be doing a Shabbat worship workshop. Please register online. It will be a great opportunity to understand a little bit more about Shabbat worship as a whole and dive even deeper to some of the things that we have been doing this year as well. Save the date. Sunday, March 5th, 11:30 a.m. for kids 5 and under until 2 p.m. Our annual Purim Carnival is back. It is. I'm very, very excited. And I felt like it would be only appropriate for one last year to do Splash Rabbi PJ. So I will prepare to be wet, and if my last gift is a wetsuit from you guys, I would not be against that, but that's okay too. And then on Monday, March 6th, 6 p.m. dinner, 7 p.m. service, spiel, and Megillah reading. Our spiel this year is inspired by Encanto. So it will be fantastical and magical. Watch the movie, you'll understand the reference. But we look forward to celebrating with you in just a few short weeks. So we are going to continue with our Kiddush, which can be found on page 122. ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר יום השישי ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאן ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי וקידש אותו כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinkilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom tekilah lemikra'e kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim Kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodsheka be'ahava uvratzon inkaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh Shabbat L'chaim.
So on this Shabbat, may all of us find love and compassion and share our love and compassion with others. We take a moment to, with a blessing, I know that James is here and we have other children here. We take a moment. Yasimcha Elohim ke'Ephraim v'chi Menashe. May God inspire you to live like Ephraim and Menashe. Yasimcha Elohim ke'Sarah, ke'Rivka, ke'Rachel, u'Leah. May God inspire you to live like Sarah, Rebecca, and Leah. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. May God bless and keep all of us. Yair Adonai panav elecha v'hunecha. May the light of God shine upon us and shine upon the world. Yisad Adonai panav elecha v'yasam lecha shalom. And may God give us peace and strength and wholeness as we go on our way. Adonai oz le'amo yitain. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. We continue together with our closing song on page 178. Shalom Rav, I believe. Please rise.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. V'tov b'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'kol עת ובכל שעה Bishlomecha. Shalom Rahava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
Shabbat Shalom.